A very good morning to Mr. Zahir. My name is Tan Wei Ming. My metric number is 270969. Today, I would like to discuss the importance of sex education in school. Recently, many news and incidents of sexual harassment happen in school, rural areas, or private parties that evoke my sympathy to discuss over the issue of formal sex educations. Although the world has changed significantly, in terms of sex educations, very little has changed. I still remember the days when I studied in secondary schools. One of the topics I have learned in the science subject was the human reproductive system. I distinctly remember that lesson we learned in class with the teacher. She was extremely uncomfortable in dealing with the subject, and so we are. After a long silence with embarrassment, she told us to read the chapter at home and promised to us that there will be just a few questions on the topic in the examinations. With the rapid growth of informations, sex information can be accessed everywhere without involvement of dependents. So, parents and schools need to instill the formal and comprehensive sex education to the children as early as possible to prevent them being misled by the indecent magazine and irresponsible media. Based on my study, I would like to discuss and explore the importance of sex education in schools. Formal sex education should be mandatory in schools because it can prevent premarital pregnancy, provide us with the evidence-based information, and prevent sexually transmitted diseases. Alright, firstly, formal sex education should be mandatory in schools because it can prevent premarital pregnancy. Research has shown that average of 18,000 teenage girls in Malaysia get pregnant each year. Out of this number, 25% or 4,500 cases involve pregnancy out of wedlock. The issue of premarital pregnancy or teenage pregnancy should take serious attention as the cases are on the rise and lead to various social problems. On 31st March 2021, ZAHRIL published an article with the title "Baby Dumping: Teenage Girl and Boyfriend Being Arrested in Malacca." This case is being investigated under Section 302 of the Penal Code, where those involved in commit murder that probably may punish with death. Throughout the case, we can roughly say that the teenage girl and her boyfriend do not have a strong understanding about sex, although both have reached 18 years old. When a baby dumping case happens, who to be blamed, right? In my point of view, instead of blaming the young mother, we should think about the leakage and imperfectness of the entire system in education. We should improve the knowledge of pregnancy preventions and access to the contraceptive if needed, and eliminate stigmatizations and judgment adolescent sexual activity by implementing sex education since primary school. Sex education is a provision of body development, educate teenagers about what is rape and how to confront when they are sexually harassed. Besides, accurate sex education comprises the positive elements such as the responsible roles, interpersonal skills, and morals. Teenagers with sex educated more likely will avoid premarital sex relationship with girlfriend or boyfriend, and this will avoid the chance to the pregnancy. According to research from the University of Washington in year 2002, The teenagers who receive sexual educations were 60% less likely to become pregnant than those who receive no sexual educations. Hence, I strongly suggest that sex education should be compulsory in our mainstream curriculum to scale down the premarital pregnancy in our country. Right. Secondly, formal sex education should be mandatory in schools because it can provide us with the evidence-based information. Based on the article on UK essay on November 2018, the importance of sex education in schools. Sex education provides teenagers with evidence-based information. Verified and proper information regarding the sex education should be delivered to the teenagers through appropriate sources. Based on my experience on sex educations, I often receive and learn about sex from friends, from books, from magazines, and from internet. I rarely learn it from schools or even parents. Can you reflect on your experience about sex educations? Alright. Nowadays, sex scene and the sex advertisement that contain sex are everywhere, especially when browsing the internet. On the internet, there is a lot of pages contain sex content that could give teenagers the wrong idea of how sex works. The act of distorting about sex will give a negative impact to the teenagers in terms of interpersonal and their growth. Parents being uneasy with discussing sex-related topics lead to teenagers searching the answer in the web, and usually that information can be wrong or misleading. A clear example of this is pornography. Because of this, provide evidence-based information by implementing sex education in school become necessary to teenagers as it can improve their knowledge and the understanding about sex from reliable sources such as trained teachers and schools authorities. Therefore, I like to persuade each one of you that formal sex educations should be mandatory in schools because it can provide us with the evidence-based information. Right. So thirdly, formal sex education should be mandatory in schools because it can prevent sexually transmitted disease. Based on the article on NCBI written by Hugh De Leong on February 20, 2019, he mentions that sex education can prevent sexually transmitted disease. The major cause of sexually transmitted disease is sexual intercourse. Generally, diseases that we know which are related to the sexual intercourse are AIDS, HIV, chlamydia, gonorrhea, infertility, and cancer. But most teenagers do not know how this disease can be infected, ways to prevent and control the spread of sexually transmitted disease. With formal sex education, teenagers can be aware about the cause of sexually transmitted disease that can harm to health or even death. For example, some teenagers think that same-sex relationships do not need a condom when having sex intercourse with another. That's not true, right? Sexually transmitted disease can be transmitted from someone of the same sex by interaction of damaged skins, wound, body fluid, or blood contaminated with HIV. Besides, infections can be transmitted by oral sex, although oral sex may be less risky. Without proper protection when having sex, or low level of hygiene, such as without condom or dental dam, can lead to the risk of being infected with sexually transmitted disease. studies have been done to show lower rate of sexually transmitted disease after receiving proper information regarding the sex education. So, I like to persuade each one of you that formal sex education is essential in schools because it can prevent sexually transmitted disease through sexual intercourse. Yeah, so as a conclusion, I stand firmly with my point of view that formal sex education should be mandatory in schools because of the reason mentioned in the beginning, which are formal sex education can prevent premarital pregnancy, provide us with evidence-based information, and prevent sexually transmitted disease. Sex education is not about teaching young generation how to have sex, but equip them with the necessary information and knowledge that equitable with social norms. That's all from me. Thank you very much.